1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. This one is not on. 1, 2, 3. How we sound?
Dead batteries, stand by.
What'd you say? Okay, thank you.
Okay, what about now? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. All right, cool. Beautiful, beautiful. All right.
Thank you, though. I really appreciate y'all. Just having me. How are you, sir? I'm great. How about you?
When it is time to take questions, Chief will indicate that. You can step to the podium, state your name, and tell us what organization you are representing. But in the meantime, let us get started. Chief Bettison?
Thank you so much, Dana, and thank you, media, for definitely coming out. And so, good afternoon. Today, I want to give an update on a couple things. First, I'll start out with Trinity. And so, it was a quadruple shooting that occurred back in the summer during the month of June on Trinity Street near Florence. And I'll give some background just to refresh everybody's memory, even though we did a critical incident debriefing and made that available and posted it on YouTube as well. So I'm pretty sure that the media is very familiar with this particular case, but just want to ensure that for others who are not, I give a little bit of background. And so on June 1st, 2024, at approximately 1:50 a.m., there was a large block party at a house located in the 16500 block of Trinity Street. Neighbors called 911 to report the incident, one of them describing it as a massive shootout. And so we know that it was a lot of shots fired at that scene, multiple 911 calls from neighbors. Patrol officers were in the area. They heard shots fired. They were on a traffic stop and were subsequently dispatched to the location. To say these officers' approach was dangerous would be an understatement, meaning the scene was very chaotic. The scene was loud. People were screaming. Some were in pure distress. And ultimately, 8 firearms were recovered from that scene, and 93 shell casings were recovered as well. So you can imagine just seeing some of the block parties or illegal street parties where we've had mass gatherings over the summer. It kind of paints the picture of what this actually was. Officers pulled up in front of the location and began checking around the house. One of the officers encountered 2 armed assailants. One was observed with a handgun. The other had a AR-style type rifle, similar to like an AK-47 assault rifle. The officer that ultimately fired shots during this incident issued a loud verbal command to the subject armed with the firearms to drop the gun as she attempted to apprehend them. Now, the officer fired approximately 5 rounds from her department-issued weapon, striking one of the targets. Officers apprehended that subject a short time later inside of his house. Officers went from apprehension mode to hero mode, rendering first aid, applied a tourniquet, which we believe ultimately saved the individual's life. In a scene like this, the officers were only on scene less than a minute. Split-second decisions had to be made. Officers were left to deal with the armed assailant standing amongst innocent partygoers. Now, turning to the updated information as of today. The day before yesterday, the department, I received information regarding analysis of ballistic evidence obtained from the individual struck by the gunfire during the incident. This evidence establishes conclusively the following. First, that one gunshot fired by the involved officer struck an unintended target, a now 20-year-old female at the location. Second, another gunshot fired by the involved officer, same officer, struck a second unintended target, a 23-year-old female at the location. Although their names will not be released at this time, I can say that both received treatment at local hospitals and have since been released. As a result of this updated information, the officer involved has been placed on no gun status, pending further investigation. Just like any other officer-involved shooting, a warrant request will be submitted to the Wayne County Prosecutor's Office. It has not been submitted yet, and I'll repeat that. Just like any other officer-involved shooting case, a warrant request will be submitted to the Wayne County Prosecutor's Office. We will provide additional updates as the investigation reveals more pertinent information. And I'll just conclude by saying investigators have spent countless hours collecting evidence, reviewing video, interviewing witnesses. Many aspects of the case still remain under investigation. And I'll open it up for questions at this time before moving on to the next topic that I want to give an update about, which is the 2-year-old that was shot last night. I want to see you stand up and go to the podium, my friend. Yes. Yes, yes.
Get George up there. Chief Bedison, Amy Lang from Fox 2. Can you just give us any update on who is in custody in this case? And if there are still, you mentioned that obviously the investigation's still ongoing, are there other people you're still looking for?
Yeah, there are other individuals that I'm still looking for, and at this particular point, who do we?
There's nobody in custody for the assault.
Okay, so it's still ongoing, and we'll keep you updated. And so I don't want to get too much into it, pending me submitting something to the Wayne County prosecutor.
Did you say there were no arrests? No arrests in this one?
No arrest at this time.
Okay, thanks. The officer, how long is she on the force? Does she have any other issues beforehand?
Looked at her disciplinary history, and what I can tell you is nothing force related, and so just nothing that would stand out. And I believe she has approximately 8 years on the job.
Okay. Any training issues here that you might want to take a second look at? That sort of thing that might alleviate this in the future? Is it too early to tell? What?
One of the things that I think will alleviate situations like this is the large block parties. And so we know we had the Rossini incident, and after Rossini, we established our block party detail, our illegal street party detail, where we deploy hundreds of officers to break up those type of incidents. And so by getting there early, answering the 911 calls, and breaking it up and having adequate resources there, we believe that will eliminate it. And we saw a tremendous drop in that type of activity after the Rossini. And we started the block party detail July 12th, and we saw a tremendous downturn when it comes to illegal street parties, because in those chaotic situations, sometimes where you have 400 or 500 people, you need to get there early and break it up, because if you have an active shooter, which this came out as really an active shooter, you have multiple people firing weapons, and if someone takes a target at our officer, it's going to be hard to defend themselves and also not hit innocent bystanders, because it's just so condensed.
So they had the guns pointed at the officer when she opened fire.
Well, according to the officer, that's what the officer believed. The officer feared for her life.
Okay.
So
Thank you.
it was, and I would just add this. The officers. It was 2 units there. It was a lot of folks, a lot of gunfire, and that on the side of a house, dark, responding. It was a less than desirable situation.
Thank you. Erica with Local 4. So she was intending to hit someone with the gun. How many bullets hit the intended target?
I believe 1 hit the intended target, and so we believe that a total of 5 shots were fired from her.
And then 2 unintended people were hit. So to make sure I have that correct.
That's correct. Yes.
And they're okay.
They're at home, and so I would need to do an additional check on their status. But from what I understand, they do not have life-threatening injuries, and that they're recovering.
So I just want to make sure I'm also clear. She has no gun status. Is that like administrative duty?
Absolutely. Yes.
Okay. And what's your reaction when you hear that 2 people were shot unintentionally?
It's my heart goes out to them. It's whether they were shot unintentionally or intentionally. It's not a good day when an officer has to use force like that. But when it's unintentional and you're there to serve and protect, I can't even imagine how the officer is feeling, and so it's not a good thing.
And when will the warrant be sent over?
So the investigation is continuing, and so I can't give a hard date as to when. But when we have all the appropriate and additional evidence, and when my investigators tell me that it's ready, then at that point we'll send it over to the Wayne County prosecutor for her review.
Thank you.
Sorry, Chief, just a quick follow-up. So 1 intended target was hit, 2 unintended. The intended target, was that person had a gun at the time, and you mentioned no arrests. So is that person under investigation? Just trying to get a little more.
Yes, I would say the person is still under investigation. The investigation continues. It was a lot of folks out there firing weapons, And so it's a lot to unpack, and we're going to be relentless and continue that. But, 93 shell casings, many shots were fired, and you listen to the 911 calls that came in, it stated that individuals had been hit even before our officers arrived on scene.
And your officer arrives, and I know I've seen the video, I did a story on it, obviously incredibly chaotic
Yes.
situation out there. I don't envy them. But you said someone had an AR type, weapon, and someone else had a handgun. The intended target, I'm assuming, had one of those weapons, the one that then they had to go into rescue mode on?
Correct.
Do you know which weapon that person had?
I believe it was a handgun.
The handgun,
Yes.
okay. But that person, intended target, still under investigation in all of this, but not under arrest at this time. Do you know condition on that individual?
Non-life threatening.
Okay, thank you.
Hi, John Hewitt, WWJ. Just to be clear, and fully appreciating the chaos of the situation.
Yes.
From where you sit today, were the officer's actions inappropriate? Might that officer be charged or recommended to be charged? Or, I mean, I know you may not be able to comment, but interested in regard to hindsight being what it is, how you evaluate what occurred.
I'm wise enough not to get in front of the Wayne County prosecutor, so I'm going to not put anything out to possibly bias the investigation. So respectfully, I'll just submit, we'll follow the evidence where it goes.
But for point of clarity, the investigation will make a recommendation on a charging decision to the prosecutor, yes?
We'll
not?
present it. I will not even make a recommendation on a charging decision. We will submit the information to her, and just so that everyone knows, it is the Homicide Task Force, and it's led by Michigan State Police, so it's independent of the Detroit Police Department, so it's outside jurisdiction that oversees. And so it'll be definitely information and belief, and the Wayne County prosecutor will ultimately make the charging decisions.
Thank you.
Yes. Well, we want to go to last night. We over on the east side of Detroit, lower east side of Detroit, we had a 2-year-old shot. I made the scene, gave sound on that. And so I'm definitely happy to be able to report that the 2-year-old is recovering, non-life-threatening injuries, and that we have the subject in custody. He did a safe surrender, turned himself in, and we actually have 2 subjects in custody. It was a dispute between new boyfriend and ex-boyfriend, and both have turned themselves in. Mr. Lacey turned himself in to police custody earlier this afternoon. And so just want to be able to thank the media, my media partners, and the community for getting the information out. And so the call to action, when we put it out, people responded. And so it's a good day. Yes.
It seems we see a lot of this, unfortunately, just around the holidays, domestic violence. Can you comment on that?
Yeah, we do, and we see domestic violence throughout the year, and one of the things that we work towards is with our CIT, and then I know that former Chief White, he's over at DWIN right now, Detroit Wayne Integrated Health Network, and so not only do they deal with mental crisis and working on getting people into a good mental state and treating that. Another thing that's often not spoken about is substance use disorder. And so oftentimes when people are depressed over the holidays, it may be financial, et cetera, they'll try to self-medicate, whether it be alcohol, whether it be other types of drugs. And so that just compounds the problem. And so just really looking for family and friends to try to encourage individuals. And if they see one of their loved ones or a friend that's kind of spiraling, reach out. You can reach out to the Detroit Police Department, reach out to DWIN. Let's get them help before it becomes a crisis.
Chief, is that what was a contributing factor in this case in terms of maybe some substance abuse or substances being involved?
It's too early to tell. I know that, in domestic type relationships, a lot of people just don't know how to break up with each other nowadays. And so, we have that thing right there. And so when you have, starting a new relationship, ending a relationship, and you have children involved, it can be. We see it, you know, regardless of, you know, what city, what state, what township. It doesn't apply to race. It's a people thing. It's a human thing.
Yeah. Do you know anything more? Can you tell us anything more about the events leading up to it, or where the shootout kind of happened, who fired first, or where they were shooting from? Any of that?
Because they haven't been arraigned yet, and I don't want to bias the investigation or get in front of the Wayne County prosecutor and have a complete unbiased investigation. I've said a lot about it, and so just will choose to let everybody know that it's domestic. But the good news is, listen, they both took accountability for their actions, and they both turned themselves in. And I just want to highlight one of our CVI groups, Community Violence Intervention, and Mr. Ray Winans, because when it comes to community violence intervention, those two young men reached out to Mr. Winans with Detroit Friends and Family and said, I want to turn myself in to the Detroit Police Department. I want to, but I'm a little apprehensive. I'm afraid. Mr. Winans called me and said, hey, can we do a safe surrender? And that was something that I used to do when I was with the department before. And a safe surrender is simply this. You come in, you turn yourself in, he'll walk you down to police headquarters. They came here, no fanfare, allowed them to keep their dignity, and, allowed them to be, knowing that they would be safe. Because it does nobody any good if the Detroit Police Department or any law enforcement agency has to come looking for you and possibly kick in your door, and then it could be loss of life of an officer, or it could be loss of life or somebody inside that residence. And so many cascading unintended consequences can happen. So I encourage anybody, and I'm going to actually start an official program, and that'll be one of the things that we do and really iron it out so that we can have a state-of-the-art safe surrender in the city of Detroit.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks. Thank you, everybody.